It's Sean and Darren back with another bite size for you there. Thanks again for tuning in and keeping watching and keeping those questions coming in. It's always nice to be able to answer those questions about what's happening on the news or in the marketplace, of course. Now, Lee Jackson.
It's Sean, actually. But it's okay.
That's all right. Well, Lee's actually written in, actually. He's likes the idea of buying a property in Spain as a bit of investment, but he keeps hearing on the news headlines and the media about this holiday rental issue over here. Can we just really clean this up as best as we can, as you as an expert in the industry? What's going on? What should Lee do? Should he be confident?
Okay, this is a minefield at the moment. It's going to get sorted out because I think we're going to see cases going to court and various things as test cases. But what's happened, just a little bit of background, is that the Spanish have a housing crisis, particularly in city centres. And what the Spanish government have decided to do is to put some measures in place that should hopefully mean that there's more housing for locals, more affordable housing for locals. And what they've done is they've taken a sledgehammer to a walnut, really. And they've also applied it to a coastal resort like the Costa del Sol, where it doesn't really apply because people are buying here mainly as second homes. They're not buying as an investment for short term or for long term. It's really muddy. But of course, what they've done is that they've brought in new legislation, which is complicated and it's been difficult to interpret. And various lawyers have disagreed with various things that each others have said. I think we're starting now to get some clarity. I have three investment properties, and on each of those properties and on each of those communities, I'm facing different scenarios exactly related to this. So I can give personal examples of what's happening. Overall, and I'll get into the nitty-gritty in a minute, but I would say overall, if you're a buyer new to the market and you want to buy a property and you want to at least have the option of renting out short term, you need to be really careful. It's still possible, absolutely possible, but you need to have the right people in your corner. You need to have a good lawyer and a good agent who know what they're doing and who can guide you just through the minefield, because it is tricky. And if you're with an amateur or you haven't got a lawyer, you've not got a hope.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the nitty-gritty, there's a few things that we need to bear in mind. If you already have a tourist license, so if you own a property and you have a tourist license that enables you to rent that property out to short term, which I think is less than 2 months in Spanish law. So we're talking about your weekly stays, Airbnb, Booking.com, things like that. If you've got a rental license, it doesn't matter what the community decide after you get your license, you can still rent that property short term. The only thing that might scupper those plans, which I'm finding on one of our developments, is if the community has since found in its bylaws that it can ban economic activity on the developments, which it wasn't really brought in for this. It was brought in mainly so people couldn't run doctors and lawyers' offices in apartments. It wasn't really brought in for tourist letting, but
Commercial enterprise.
yeah, but people are using it for this.
Yeah.
So if they've decided that no, you can't have tourist letting because of this clause in the bylaws, then you're going to be a bit snookered anyway. You've still got your rental license. You are allowed to rent it out, but you probably won't be able to get this special number that you need from the registry, which will enable you to advertise your property on the websites. Okay. If you've got a development that allows holiday rentals, and you haven't got a license, you will need to obtain the express consent of at least 60% of the community to enable you to do that. And different communities are doing different things. Some of them are doing it on a case-by-case basis, which is talk about admin, or they're doing it as a blanket thing once a year. And the community can decide at a general meeting. So it can be an annual general meeting or it can be an extraordinary general meeting. So where I live in Montemayor, they're just calling an extraordinary general meeting for the 1st of July so that they can just be done with this. And we have, I think, 250 owners. We know that there's probably going to be about 10 people at the EGM. Because look, people don't go to these. It's not something that's high on their agenda. They don't really want to get involved. They're not bothered. But the only item on the agenda is holiday rentals. And what we've said to the community is, look, we don't have a problem with holiday rentals as a committee, but you as a community of owners need to give express approval for it to happen. We know that at the EGM, we're not going to get 60% of the community voting in favour because there aren't enough people voting. So people have been thinking, oh my goodness, that's the end of the line. Then it means that holiday rentals won't be allowed. That's not necessarily the truth, because what happens then, because we won't have sufficient votes, we have to then send the minutes of the meeting to all the owners, and we have to wait for their response, I think within a couple of weeks. And at that point, it's kind of flipped on its head, because no response equals a positive vote. And that's how you're going to get it through.
Gosh.
Yeah, I know, exactly right. We've been back and forwards, up and down with lawyers and stuff to get to the nitty gritty of this. And this, we had an LPA, which is the leading property agents of Spain. We had a conference last week, and I actually brought this up as a question at the end because the lawyers were discussing it, and they all said, yeah, that's absolutely right. That's how most communities, if they want to get it through, that's how they're going to get it through, because people just don't populate these meetings. You don't get 200 people at an EGM.
Yeah, you can't just assume, can you?
I'm optimistic, thinking we're going to get 10.
Yeah.
So there's no way we're ever going to reach the 60%. So there's no way we can allow it from that. But the lawyers say that it then has to go back to the owners by a proper written kind of email.
And if you still don't get a response?
If you still don't get a response, then it's counted as a yes, we agree.
Good. Yeah. I think that's the only way of doing it. Otherwise, it'll be absolutely scuppered.
But the amount of communities who are being badly advised, the amount of administrators who don't know what they're doing, it's a nightmare. I mean, the first thing I do when I buy an investment property, and I don't have any of my investment properties rented short term, but the first thing I do is to get a holiday license, a tourist license, because it just, I could see this coming down the track, and it just means I'm buying a bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
On one development, I wouldn't have a problem because the community are in favour, and we voted for it at the last AGM. On another development, we have a problem because of the bylaws saying that no commercial activity, so that's a bit of a grey area. So although I have a tourist licence, maybe I can't use it. And then the other one, they've banned, they've said, no, there isn't a 60% majority for holiday rentals, so no holiday rentals, but I have my licence and I can use it, and I can apply for my special number, and that's going to be fine because they can't ban me retrospectively. So that's the sort of micro community level activity. But obviously we've also got the greater political activity. So we've got town halls, municipalities saying we are going to ban holiday rentals, which is scary. When you read that in the Daily Mail, you're thinking, my God, I won't be able to go on holiday to Spain. Rubbish, nonsense. It's just what they're trying to do is they're trying to control the industry, which is absolutely right. They should be.
And it's pretty normal in other countries, isn't it?
Absolutely right. So when you hear about, Malaga's banned 16,000 holiday rentals, that's the ones that weren't registered or licensed.
Yeah.
So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's great, fantastic. So it should be, and it's gone on far too long like that. But then when you start hearing things about, Mijas are saying no to any more holiday rentals, you've got to be careful, because again, if you haven't bought and you haven't got a holiday license in place, and you want to go and buy in a municipality where they suddenly say no more holiday rentals, you're snookered. So you've got to get in. You need a good agent, because if Mijas say no more holiday rentals, you've got to go with an agent who knows that municipality has said that. Then you've got to buy, then apply for your license quickly, get it day one. And this is where it might be an idea to buy on a new development.
Yeah.
Because new developers, we've spoken to several, and they are all saying the same thing, that it would not be in their interest to have anything in the bylaws of a community to ban holiday rentals or commercial activity. And very often it takes about a year for the development to be handed over to its owners. Within that year, get your license, get in, and then you're safe.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be commercially viable for the developers, and some of them certainly to actually not do that. Yeah.
But it's an issue. It's a valid issue. I forget the gentleman's name, but it's
Lee.
It's a valid issue. It's something that you need to look at very carefully with your agent of choice and with your lawyer. Make sure that the property that you acquire is one that can do the job for you.
Yeah.
But just be aware that there is a squeeze on it.
Lee, I hope that helps, and obviously some great advice there. Getting a right agent, get a lawyer that's really going to know the stuff.
I think Lee's head might have fallen off.
I think mine has, to be honest with you. But I think, you know, Lee, if you've got any further questions or need some support, we can certainly connect you with Cloud9, of course, with the lawyers as well that do know what they're doing. So any comments, questions, don't forget to give us a like till the next bite size. Keep the questions coming in, and we'll catch you on the next one.